Okay, and hello and welcome. My name is Martin, and when we left off last time, we had created this landscape by using the landscape, and by going to manage and to sculpt. We saw several of the tools like the sculpting tool, the smooth tool, the flatten tool, the ramp tool. We saw both of the erosions, the noise, and the two that we missed were these two down there, and I said I'd get to them in a later video, and we will get to them in a later video. In this video, what we're going to do, however, is we're going to paint different colors on this landscape, because right now we have what looks like a geometry where we have all the little squares. So we obviously need to put a material on that, and then we were going to want to be able to paint certain areas like white at the top for mountaintops, maybe like a rocky color towards the peaks of the mountains, more like a grassy color here, and then when we get into the water area, we want something that's going to look like sand or like a river bottom or something like that. It just depends on how clear the water is going to be and how far down we're actually going to be able to see. So first things first, the other point that I should have made in the previous video, if you intend for people to walk on this outside area, obviously remember that they can fall off the edge unless you put some kind of a blocking volume on the outside, or you make the mountain peaks so tall that they're completely impassable. This would be obviously something that your testers would have to test and make sure that there's no way that anybody would be able to walk off the edge of your gameplay area. So that's actually what I'm going to go ahead and do right now. So with this, I'm just going to make it to where it is completely not probable that anybody would ever be able to come off of this game board. So those feel a little bit soft. Let's see if we can't make that a little bit taller. That feels better. And again, all I'm doing is making sure that nobody will be able to walk out of this. I also want to make sure that nobody gets stuck there. Okay, let me use the flatten tool a little bit. Whoops, where'd we go? Okay. So I'm making more playable area. Okay, that side probably needs to go up a bit. Alright, so those look pretty big. This is probably the only problem area right here. Let's go back to the sculpt tool. Let's bring that up. And those are going to be some pretty tall mountains. So I'm going to go ahead and push play. And I want to see what this is going to feel and look like. Okay, we definitely have some mountains. See what it looks like from up here first. Okay. At least from where I'm supposed to be able to get to, that does look pretty good. Let's see down here. Let's go over to the temple and look off of the wall. Okay. Again, believable. there might be a little bit, maybe like an extra peak or something there. I could see maybe making like a cut right here to create like another mountain or like a valley or something that a river could come out of. Again, depending on where your character is and what they can see, you may or may not need to do that. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. So let's go ahead and start painting this. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to need to do is actually create our own material. And the material that we're going to create is going to end up looking like this. So let me go ahead and open up the example that I've got. And that will be the first material that we make. So let's go ahead and get started with it. Alright, so the very first thing that we'll have to do to create a new material, and I'm going to create a new folder to put this in. So in my content folder, what I did was I created a new folder and called it A_my_stuff, so it actually makes it show up before any of the other folders, which is a nice little technique to getting stuff to show up at the very, so it's easier to organize. So if you double click in that folder, or create that folder by right clicking in the empty space, and I believe you could probably go down there and right click and you'll see that you get new folder. So I'm going to create another one called A2_my stuff. And remember that you can't use any special characters. Underscores are okay, but no spaces, because it's going to need to keep track of all this stuff. So that's what the folder should look like. So A_my stuff. Inside that folder, what I want you to do is click and right click in that empty space and see up there where it says create a basic asset. So let's go ahead and click material, and let's call this landscape. Let's just call it landscape. That's fine. So we'll call it landscape. All right, so if you double click on the landscape, you're going to see that you end up with this screen right here. And essentially what we're going to be doing with this is we will be clicking the apply to add any of the changes, and then we'll be using the default parameters here, plus we'll be adding things to this basic object, which then will make this different. Okay. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to create these things called, let me actually go look at the other one. So layer blends. So let's right click and let's type in layer blend. And I think I'm actually doing that the wrong way. I need to do landscape. Right click, landscape, layer blend. Okay, so what we're doing is we're right clicking and we're going into the search and we're going to type in landscape layer blend. That'll be the easier way to find it. So we click one of those and this is what we get. If we click on this, we then get a details panel, and if we underneath layers, this is going to be the important thing because this is what's going to create our layers. So we're going to want to add at least 4 layers. So one is going to be my snow layer, one's going to be a rock layer, one's going to be a grass layer, and one's going to be a sand layer. And honestly, if you wanted more layers, you could just click on another layer, and that would give you another option to be able to put. So think of this sort of like a paint palette that gives you the ability to be able to put different paints in each one of these. And you'll see over here also that it now has each one of those layers named. Now what I would do to make this easier for you, so then that way you know what each one of these are, go ahead and open each one of these, and we're going to go into layer name, and we're going to change the layer name to the different object or the different texture that we're going to want in each one of these. So let's put the first one as snow. Let's put the second one as like a rock layer, like where the snow reaches the mountaintops, the rocks. Then the next one would be sort of like a grass layer, where the rocks go into a grass layer. And then from there we'll have a grass to sand, as grass goes creates like a gives way to like a beach, right? So we'll say this is going to be sand. You could write dirt, sand. You know what? I'm going to have a dirt layer, and then I'm going to have a sand layer. Okay, so that gives us 4 now. So, oh, actually 5 if we include 0, right? So we got 5 different layers. So that's going to be snow, rock, grass, dirt, and the last one is, oh, did I not put sand? Okay, sand. All right. So starting from the top of the mountain, snow, rock, then grass, then dirt. I swear I feel like I keep changing this. Sand. Let's click somewhere else. Okay, maybe I just wasn't clicking enter or something. Sand. Okay. All right. Now, we're going to actually need 2 of these because we're going to attach one to the base color and then we're going to attach one to the normal. Okay, and we can right click on this and we can say duplicate. I can grab the second one and we're going to put the second one into normal. Okay, so since we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these, we're going to actually need 5 textures, and they're going to be called texture samples. So we're going to right click and we're going to type in texture sample. Okay, and that's what a texture sample should look like. And at this point we can hit duplicate, and if I have 2 of them, if I have them both selected and I hit duplicate, I get an additional 2, so that's a shortcut. And then we just need 1 more. So let's duplicate 1 more. Now, as far as setting this up, the easiest way to do this is going to actually be setting them up long ways, since we are going to need to connect them on the other side to a single unit as opposed to, and you'll find different ways to write your code, and what I mean writing your code is arranging these boxes, so then that way they make sense visually when you look at them. Alright, so now that we have that there, we're going to connect the RGB, or the full color output of the first texture box, to snow, and then do the same thing to each one as we go down. So each one of these will then go, and whoops, I missed one. I actually have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, I sure did miss one. Look. Okay, so this is good. Actually, this is great, because what this allows me to do is show you how to unhook these things in case you get lost, or you add something and you need to redo something. So if you click on one of them individually and you say break link node, let's see, right click, and break link. Okay, so that broke just the one link, right? So we'll do that again. So we'll click on this one, we'll right click, and we'll say break links, and because that was the only one that's selected, that's the only one that broke. Notice all 3 of the other ones stayed. Now if I click on the whole thing and I say break links, it's going to break everything. Okay, so I'm going to undo one more time, and well, actually let me put that one back in. Okay, so we've got all of them. If I select one and say break link, it breaks the link. If I select the whole thing and I don't have one of these individually selected, if I select the whole thing and say break links, they're all broken. Okay, so again, the output of this is going to go to basic color, and then we're going to want to make sure we don't miss any of these. So I'm going to bring this out this way so I can actually see the strings as I'm bringing them in. Okay, that time we feel good. Alright, so that's what we've got so far. Now, as far as moving the code, you can actually do things like grab multiple things together. So we can grab this and move it up or move it down, or whatever we'd like to do to make the code easier to read. Obviously, I'm going to need another set of these for the ones that are down there. So what I can do is I can actually copy these, Control C, Control V. So that's another way to make copies of things. And the other thing technically that we could have done that would have saved us some time is, since this isn't going to be an exact copy of the one that's above, since these are already hooked up, I could just go Control C, Control V, grab that, and I don't even have to connect those things anymore. I can just, oops, and okay, this is fine. Just do that. Hopefully we can get it without getting the other one in the way. All right, so I still need to connect this, and this is going to, remember, go to normal. Okay, so at the moment what we have is going to be these 5 up here going through a layer blend, and these 5 down here going through another layer blend, one going into the color to basic color, and the other one going into normal. Okay, so on the other side of this, what we're, well actually before we move on, let's go ahead and load these images real quick. So if I select the first texture sample, what I'm going to get is a place over here in Details panel, which is going to allow me to add a texture. So what I'm looking for, if this is going to be snow, would be snow. So if I type in snow, I'm going to actually look for one that doesn't have a blue hue in it, and we'll explain that later. So this is actually fairly okay. That looks like snow. That'll do. Okay, for the next one, we're going to be looking for, this one was going to be rock. So let's type in rock. And again, see how that one has kind of like a blue purplish hue? We're going to stay away from those for now. Those are actually going to be the ones that go into the bottom set. So if we're looking for rock, okay, I'm going to pick this one to show you what to stay away from. So we don't want anything that is like this. This is going to be a material that was used for like a pebble or for like a rock, one of those rocks that we've used like around the garden, or if you're decorating with the rocks. So definitely not something like that. What we definitely want is something more like this, which is a full color, and it's going to be something that's going to be copied over and over and over again, which is going to create the long feel of rocks, right? So that's what we're looking for that one. So the next one down is going to be grass. So let's click in here and type in grass. Okay, same thing. Stay away from those bright colors like that. What we're looking for is something that has, definitely not that. So let's type this one in. That one, not feeling it. Okay, that one feels good. Okay, it's got a nice bunch of variation in there. Kind of looks like matted grass from far away. Okay, next one is going to be dirt. So we're going to click on the next one down, and we're going to type in dirt. Same thing. We're looking for a nice square material, dirt. That looks fine. And the last one is going to be sand. So we're going to type in sand for the last one. Okay, with sand, let's click on that one. And okay, that looks fine. Alright, so now we have the actual colors that are going to be used up here. Now, what the bottom ones are going to be used for is to actually give a little bit more texture. And what I mean by that is that these are going to be blended together with the colors above to kind of spread the colors around a little bit, so then that way it doesn't look as repetitive. And that it looks a little bit more like shadows. So imagine that you're doing like a surface layer, and then you're putting like a little bit of a shadowing behind it. So that's what these are going to be down here. And for these, we're actually going to be using the other textures, the blue ones, the ones that I told you to stay away from. So we're going to click on the first one, and we're going to wait for the autosave. So we're going to click on the first one. We're going to go in there, and we're going to again type in snow. And if I find there's a nice one right there where we have the bluish kind of feel to it, and you see how that's kind of like got striations, but it doesn't have the blue color or the white color the way this one did. Okay, so let's go to the next one down. This one was supposed to be rock. So let's type in rock. And there's a nice blue one right there. And you see that this actually is fairly close and sort of matches up with the texturing style that was up there. So let's click on this one. Let's go to the next one. And this one was going to be grass. With grass, let's see if we don't. There's one right there. And this is going to be what our texture is going to feel like. Let's go to the next one. And this is going to be dirt. Okay, there's that kind of bluish dirt. And let's do this last one right here. And this one was going to be sand. Okay, there's our sand. All right, fantastic. We're almost there. All right, so the last part of this is, since this is going to be a landscape, we're going to need what are called landscape coordinates. So then that way, as we draw, it actually adds it to that particular coordinate system. So with that, what we need to do is go back to our material, right-click over here, and type in land landscape, and you'll see it right there, landscape layer coordinates, and that's short for coordinates. And with this, what we're going to do is we're just going to connect it to the UV of each one of the textured patterns. Okay, so let's go to that one. And it doesn't matter, honestly, if you do it in order or not, as long as they're connected. Alright. So at this point, this is what we should have. And let me see if I can't back that out just a little bit so that you can see. Okay, so we have the landscape coordinate. That is attached to each one of my texture samples. The first texture should be snow. This one should be rock. It does say rock. It looks a lot like snow, but it is rock. It says this one is grass. This one is dirt. This one is sand. Then I have the blue version of ice. The blue version of the texture for remember, these are to add sort of like black to kind of change the color a little bit, to add what feels like more shading. Okay, same thing for what was it? So snow, rock, grass, dirt, sand, we have all the same ones. And then each one of the RGBs from all of the textures, the first set of 5 is going, so that set of 5 is going into the first layer blend, and that's going into the basic color. And this layer 5 is going into the layer blend and then going into normal. So that's what we're going to see here. Okay. Let's just see if there's anything else they did to this particular landscape. I want to see if they changed anything. Surface. Nope, not for now. Okay, there's this mask, but we'll get to that in just a second. Oh, okay. The other thing we probably want to do is we want to probably add a consistent to the roughness, which is why see how ours is still very much like a light gray. So we're going to right click and we're going to type in consistent, which is going to create a number value. Then that number value is always going to be the same. So we're going to add that to roughness. And if we click on the consistent and come over here to value, and we should be able, let's make it a value of, I believe it's a value of 1, if I'm not mistaken. Let's go and look on the other one. Yes, and we do have that at a value of 1. Okay, so now that we have all of this, what we want to do, and you'll see that that has made our landscape darker, and the reason for this is because it doesn't know which one of these to apply to that particular area, so it's leaving it blank and unlit. So once we have all of this together, what we want to do is hit apply. Okay, that'll make sure that this is all one thing, so we click apply, it's saving the changes. Okay, so you can now see that we haven't made a change, and so there's nothing to apply to the material. So once the material is there, we want to go ahead and hit save also. So we save after we hit apply, and at this point we should be able to, would you like, yes. Okay, so we're saving. All right, fantastic. So now that we have this material, we want to apply it to the landscape that we have created. So in order to do this, we have to go back to place. That will allow us to be able to select the mesh. And from there, we can then get into the details panel. And if we scroll down far enough, we're going to see landscape, and we're going to see landscape material. Okay, so in landscape material, we're going to add the landscape that we have just created, and it's going to take your computer a little bit, but what's going to eventually end up happening is it's going to turn black. Okay, and again, this is happening because it doesn't know which one of the 3 colors to pick, and it also doesn't have a layer to add those 3 colors to. Okay, so when we're ready, what we want to do is go back to Landscape Tool. Okay, inside the Landscape Tool, we can go to Paint. And once we have Paint selected, if we scroll down, we now have information in our Layers panel. And you'll see that each one of these is labeled with the information that we put in from our information here, from the from the material that we've just created. And now the only thing that we need to do is add or create a layer panel for this. So let's go ahead and click, and we're going to add a weight blend layer. And it's going to ask us where we want to add this, and we want to add this to the folder that we just finished creating, right? So in my case, it's going to be A2_my stuff. For y'all, it's going to be A_my stuff. So I'm going to click in there, and once I have that thing selected, we'll click OK, and that should add a layer panel. And at this point now, what can happen is I should be able to start drawing my snow in. So let's see. Okay, so we've added a snow layer. Let's add a rock layer. Again, same folder. Okay, I'm going to add a grass layer. Again, same folder. A dirt layer. Same folder. And a sand layer. Same folder. Okay, so now we have a landscape layer for each one of the different layers that we have here, and at this point we're ready to start painting. So I'm going to click, let's say, on grass, and now I can scroll up to the top with the grass selected, and there are different types of brushes that I can use. I can extend or how strong the tool is, how big the brush is going to be. So let's make the brush, let's say, about this big. And you'll see this happen where it goes back into this kind of like a gray color. And that's because what the computer is doing is trying to figure out what to draw there. So let's go ahead and put a little bit more green. And you'll see now that I am actually able to paint with my, on my landscape. So let's add that. Let's make the brush a little bit bigger. Okay. Now, one of the things that we're seeing here is that we're seeing a very nice hard edge, right? So kind of looks like a golf course, kind of, where you've got the green area that's been kind of cut out, which would actually be very good for a golf course. But in nature, usually we don't have these nice defined lines unless somebody's actually made them. So what we need to actually do is change the brush fall off. So you'll see that if it's closer to the edge, let's see, we get harsh lines. If we go back out the other way, we'll see that we get a slightly softer line, although that's not very convincing. Let's take the tool down a bit. There we go. That's way softer. Okay. Now what I did there was there was a setting that I forgot to click on, which was called Use Target Value. And so we have the tool brush at very, very weak. We have the brush size fairly big because we're swashing over a big area, and we have this fall off so much so that you can barely see the interior circle there. So if I was to leave that there, you can kind of see that the inside circle is tremendously weak, right? So all I'm doing now is going back over the areas that I painted and adding a little bit more of a soft edge to it. Also, when you're doing this, I don't know how fast you need to go on your camera, but that's a bit annoying. Okay, so now we've seen the green. Let's switch over to another color. So I'm going to scroll down here, and instead of being in the green, let's add the dirt. And now I'm going to be adding on the dirt layer. And okay, so now we see the brown. So that might be the, let's say, the color of the mountains, except for at the very top, where maybe the mountains stay white because they're covered in snow. Now, depending on the amount of power that your computer has, this is going to be a very painful process, or you should be fairly okay. In my case, I'm okay. Okay, so now we have a mountainside that has some brown on it, and then we have some greens down here. Okay, so we now see how we're going to be able to color the landscape that we've created. We see where we're going to be able to, or how we are able to create a multi-textured material, which will then allow us to be able to essentially go through and paint different surfaces with that particular color or texture. We've seen that once that texture or once the material has been made, that we have to actually go to landscape paint, go into each one of the layers and create a layer or create a layer info panel, which are these down here for each one of the individual layers. Once that's been created, you can start painting in that color. So we'll do the sand color over here. I'm still in dirt. Okay, that always happens the first time. And let's see what that sand is going to look like. Okay, so now we have that brown color. Or that lighter, more like sienna brown versus that darker burnt brown. There we go. All right, very cool. And you see how you've seen how you can make soft edges and hard edges with that as well. Okay, so in the sake of not making this video too long, I'll leave it at that. Just make sure that if you are going to use a landscape and you are going to allow people or your characters to walk into the landscape, that the landscape is not scalable and that they're not able to go high enough in the landscape to actually fall off of the area that they're working in. Okay, so hope you guys have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.